Hello, this is an introduction video to the butterfly tabletop machine. We're going to quickly go over the features of this machine. If you want more details, please see our following videos. Okay, this machine is a combination embroidery machine and sewing machine. This area here, this table detaches. This is the embroidery table here. It detaches and then you can put on a sewing table instead if you want sewing mode. Or you use this table if you want to embroider with this machine. Here is the LCD touchscreen. You push on it and to control the machine. When it is in embroidery mode with the embroidery table, there will be a graphical interface that lets you load embroidery designs, select from a library, or do lettering, and then sew from there. If you take this off and put the other table on, the sewing table, the GUI will change to a sewing mode, and which you can pick which kind of stitches you want the machine to sew. In sewing mode, the pressure foot here will go back and forth depending on which pattern you select out of the sewing menu. Up here is where you load your thread cone to. The thread cone starts here, it goes through here, and down there in sewing and embroidery mode. It can also be set up to wrap around here to fill out bobbins. This dial here sets the tension, the upper tension of the thread. So normally it should be on 4, which is an average tension. If you need the upper thread to be tighter, you would set it to a higher number, which would increase the tension by spinning the dial. And if you want lower, then you'd go underneath 4 for a weaker upper thread tension. This button here moves the needle up or down, and usually during sew mode only. You should not use this button in embroidery mode. And when you put the needle down, it makes it easy to rotate your fabric so you can change direction while you're doing manual sewing. This button here is the manual trim, so he will cut the thread with his internal knife when it's ready to release the fabric from the machine. And this button down here is the reverse button, which is also a sewing mode only button. This will make your sewing pattern go in reverse while you hold it down. That way at the beginning or the end of your sewing you can reinforce it. This here is the start and stop button. You'll push it to start or stop the machine. When it's ready to embroider, it will turn green. Down here is the bobbin area. So the bobbin can eject from here and you can replace the bobbin if needed. If you need to adjust the bobbin tension, you would take the plate off and there's an adjustment for the bobbin thread, which is the lower thread. This thing here is the pressure foot for a embroidery machine. It can be changed out. So when you have the embroidery table, you want to have the embroidery foot here. But if you switch to sewing mode, there's many sewing foots to choose from. So for different sewing tasks, different design for like sewing buttons on or buttonholes or zigzags or all sorts of designs. So on here are ways to eject the sewing feet and then change to different sewing feet. Or you can swap this out for the embroidery pressure foot for when you're embroidering instead. Up in the front here and down here are ways to cut the thread. So you may not be able to see it, but whenever you thread the needle, there's going to be extra thread and you can just cut it here And whenever you put the bobbin in, there'll be extra thread and you will cut it here. Those are convenience items. There's a handle here for carrying the machine. You must detach the tables before moving the machine around by the handle. Back here is a wheel to control the main shaft. The main shaft will go up and down as you turn it. There are many tasks on the machine when you're switching out or changing modes that require you to spin this wheel so the needle is highest. For instance, if you wanted to change out the needle, you wanted it at its highest point. Or when you change out the foot, generally you want it at the highest point as well. Down underneath here are a couple of switches to move the pressure foot to higher or lower heights for when you set up the machine or do maintenance. And generally you want this down to start sewing or embroidery, and you move this lever up if you need to move a hoop underneath it or change out the pressure foot. There is a convenience feature here that helps you thread the needle. So when you pull this down, he will place a small hook through the middle of your needle's eyelet. So if you put your upper thread in front of it, it will grab it and pull it through. Now you can still thread the needle by putting the thread through the eye, but this convenience tool can help. And of course, this cutting implement here can make very sharp cuts, so you don't always have to use the scissors to make sure the tip of your thread is a clean cut. Here's one of the hoops for embroidery mode. This is the small hoop. It would go here. Let me use this lever to lift the pressure foot up out of the way. And it would attach to the embroidery table like this. And when you're done using it, you detach it and again use the lever to pull the pressure foot out of the way. And there you go. Now let's see. On the other side of the machine are the on-off switch and the USB ports. So the USB port is here, and you would use this to load embroidery designs that have been converted to this machine's format. And okay, I think that's good for a basic summary, and please continue to watch our videos for more detailed information on how to use this machine. Thank you. Changing the table. Now the table here is interchangeable. It lets you change the mode of the sewing machine between sewing mode and an embroidery mode. And when you have the embroidery table, your screen here will have embroidery functions. But when you switch off to the other table, which is the sewing table, it will now appear sewing functions. To change the table out, first turn off the machine. This is a little bit safer for the electronics. Now that it's off, on the embroidery table, there is a slot underneath here and a little lever. So you pull on the lever and that will release the table, and then you can pull it straight out. And to put the embroidery table in, there is a slot here. There's a plug here that goes to the slot. So you just go straight in and you make sure you hear a small latching noise there. So the embroidery table goes in and out pretty easily. Pull the latch, pull straight out, and then back in, make sure it clicks. And that's the embroidery table. To switch to the sewing table, let's take this out, get the other table. So this is the sewing table. It has little feet at the bottom that you should pull out to provide extra support for it. This is held on with a few plastic snaps which would supply pressure around the plastic, and a little slot, a little plug that goes into the slot there. So it's slightly more tougher because it is pushing up against there for support. So put it here, slide it in like that. There are little slots to line up, and we'll do this. Push it all the way in, and it's nice and secure, and that's how you put the sewing table on. And again, you notice there's feet down here to provide it support. Now let's take it out. I mean, it is a couple of plastic snaps trying to hold it on, so it's a little bit harder than the embroidery table to put on and off. So, took it out, let's put it back in. Line up the plug with the slot. And there you go, that's the sewing table. And when I turn the machine on, it would show the sewing GUI instead of the embroidery GUI. Now, when you change the table, you must also change out the pressure foot because the embroidery foot is not used with sewing mode. And the sewing feet, if they're on there, are not used for embroidery mode. So, to go to sewing mode, put the sewing table on, change out the pressure foot for a sewing foot. And for embroidery mode, put the embroidery table on, change out for an embroidery foot. And we will show that in other videos. And let me take this out one more time. It's plastic, so it holds a little bit. Here you go. Back to the embroidery one, and again, it does have a plug with electronics, so you will hear a click when it's in, and there you go. And that's how you change out the tables. Again, changing out the pressure foot will be in the next video. In this video, we showed changing the embroidery foot to a sewing foot. You have to do this whenever you change this machine to its sewing mode and sewing table. You must have the sewing foot with it. Or if you go to the embroidery table, you have to put the embroidery foot right back. So first we will show the embroidery foot coming off and being changed with the sewing foot, and then we'll put it back. I know this looks a little confusing, but we will show another angle of this, and it doesn't look very confusing when you do it. Okay, so the first thing you do is you lift up the pressure foot to the top by pulling it up. Down is when it's ready to sew or embroider, and up is to do maintenance with it. So move it up. Also, use the wheel that controls the main shaft on the back of the machine, and make sure your needle is all the way up, or at least higher than the bottom of the foot. So changing out this is actually pretty easy once you do those steps, because it's just a single screw here which holds everything on. So what we're going to do is loosen this enough and then this will come right off. It's just a single screw which holds everything. And switch over to the sewing foot here. And again, he has a slot here which this screw will hold on to. You can see this. So let me put the slot under there. I will show another angle. And then tighten it, and then there you go. That was very quick and painless. You must tighten this screw pretty well, because if it falls off, that will do bad things. Okay, let me take this back off by loosening the screw. Move that off and put the embroidery foot back on. And again, this needs to be up, and you need to rotate the main shaft until the needle is at its highest position. So this is the slot for the screw. It's on the side, so the slot has to be on the side. So let's put it in there. you will notice that it has this thing hanging over. So this is higher than this thing when you put it on. Anyways, do the same thing. We tighten it up. And again, make sure it's very tight. So that it can sew safely. And that was it for changing out the head that holds sewing feet versus the embroidery foot. And let me move to a different angle so you can see this again. Okay, here I will demonstrate taking off the embroidery foot again, switching it with the sewing foot, and then switching back. So again, there is the switch here to put the pressure foot in its ready position versus up, which is its maintenance position. Make sure it's up, and again, use the wheel on the back of the machine to make sure your needle is all the way up. Once you do this, then you just use a screwdriver to loosen this one screw enough so that this can come right off. And then the sewing foot here, he will slide onto that, like so. And again, be sure you screw this on tight so it doesn't fall off during operation. There you go, and this is one of the sewing feet. Now to switch it back, let's just take this one screw off, or loosen. Put this on, this must wrap around there. It has to go on the other side and wrap around it like so. Then you tighten. To get this on and off, you have to untighten the screw a lot and tighten it a lot. And be sure it's strong. And there you go. We went from embroidery needle, embroidery pressure foot to the sewing foot, and then back to it. In this video, I'll show changing out the sewing foot for a different sewing foot. So right here, this is an attachment which can hold a couple of different types of sewing feet. The sewing foot here can detach from this with this button here. So I pulled that in, it fell down. And there is a little bar here, you can see it. Yeah, there you go. So when you pull this down, it opens up a little, you can see it there. You put the bar there and he will hold it or detach it. So let me press it down again and put this up and then release, and there you go. That's how a foot goes on. You do that, foot comes off. And again, these are sewing feet, not the embroidery foot. And to get it in, make sure the bar is lined up with this forward slot. I guess it can snap in too, but if holding it down would make it easier, I think. So, and then unsnap it, get this other type in, and we go straight up with this one. This one's harder to snap onto. Oh, there it is. There we go. Release. And snap in. And there you go. That's how you change out between the different sewing feet. Changing the needle. To change the needle, make sure the needle is all the way at its highest position by turning the main shaft with the main wheel on the back, like so. And make sure your foot is at its lowest position. You know, if it could be up here or down here. If it's down here, you have more room to work with. Now, this screw here is the only thing holding the needle. So if you loosen it, like so, the needle should come out like that. and then you put a new needle in. Now this needle has a flat part on it, if you can see that. So this flat part faces the back. This way the needle is always rotated in the right position. You cannot put it in incorrectly. So it will only go into the slot if the flat part is again facing the back. So once it's in, make sure it goes all the way up. You see a little dot up here, and you will see the needle underneath it and hit it. So make sure the needle is all the way up against that, or else the machine is not gonna work. So let me hold it there, and then tighten the needle. Make sure you tighten it tight so it does not get loose or fall off during operation. And there you go. That is how you change the needle. Threading the machine. To thread the machine or change the cone on the machine, first detach the old cone by taking off the cone cap. It pulls right off. Switching out the cone and putting another cone on, and putting the cone cap sliding on over the post. Make sure this is not squishing the thread so that it can still be free. Okay, let's get the thread. Now there are instructions here on how to thread it in two different ways. One is to thread it so it can go to the bobbin winder and back of the machine. We're not following those instructions in this video. The other set of instructions go here, which is labeled 1, 2, 3's down here, and then 4 here. So let me show you. So there's a hook here, metal hook, go underneath it like so. There's a plastic tab here, which is in air a little bit. There's a slot there. So we put the thread underneath there, like so. Now, before you put the thread across there, you have to make sure that underneath the pressure foot switch is raised up. This is because the pressure foot switch also controls the tensioning. So when the pressure foot is down, it will squish the thread in between and provide tension to it. And when the pressure foot switches up, this will release and let you insert thread. So when the pressure foot is down, there is tension on the upper thread. This dial starts working and you can sew. But to insert thread in it, you must put the switch up. This frees it so the thread can go across. There is no more tension that's deactivated when the switch is up. So we went from here to the hook, around and underneath this part, which is number 2, and then across there. Now we're going down. Number 3 says loop back up to this one. So we go down on the right side and we're coming back up on the left side. Then we're going to follow here along the perimeter. And you can see in here, let me spin the main shaft. You can see the take-up lever there, and he is shaped like this. So we're going to hook the thread in there by going along the perimeter here. And for this to work, your thread kind of needs to be tight. So sometimes you might want to hold the thread somewhere so it does not, so it's nice and straight. So follow the perimeter on the left. Go right and follow this way, and the take-up lever is now holding on to your thread. Then go straight down. Again, this is a lot easier than what it looks, but be sure to use the wheel on the back to spin this in the take-up lever so that you can grab your thread easily. Now you pull the thread down to the needle. There is a guard at the top of the needle. You should go underneath that. So make sure, like so. And now for the needle itself, there's a couple ways to do this. If you are an embroidery veteran, you can cut the tip of this and then run it through the eyelet. This machine has a helper function here. When you pull this one down, it will put a little hook, you can see it, through the eye of the needle. So what you do at this point is make sure that your thread can be caught by that hook. You can go, if you can see it, it's a hook that points, that hooks downward. So you get this thread underneath that hook and it will suck it in. So let's see if we can do that. Again, you can either go left to right or right to left, whichever gets underneath the hook. So let me put it down there and release the thing. And what it should do is pull some of it through the back of it. There. So that you can grab the loop and put it all the way through. That wasn't a very good one. Let's pull it back out. Put this back down again. You will notice that there's a little hook, hard to see. There's a little hook as part of this contraption, so you can go underneath that hook and he can serve as one part of your hand, all the way down. You see I go underneath that helper hook and up a little bit, and I release this slowly, and I release this side too. And there we go, there's a hook on the, a loop on the back of it, and then you can pull it all the way through from there. Let's do that again. Down. Let me use this hook helper on the left this time. It's through, underneath, up, and there you go. Changing the bobbin. To change the bobbin, move the pressure foot out a little bit by raising it, and then this button here should slide to the right to eject the cover. Now pull the bobbin out and replace it with a new bobbin. Now there are instructions here that tell you which way the bobbin should rotate. So as you can see, it rotates counterclockwise, and then the thread should enter here. So here's the bobbin, counterclockwise. The thread will go underneath here, like so. Then up here. Now what you should do is pull on it. Pull on the thread and see if it feels firm. If it's not firm, then you need to try to put it in again, or make sure the bobbin case is tightened so it feels as tight as the upper thread feels when the top is set at like setting 4. So anyways, it should feel like medium firm coming out of it, and that's when you know it's seated in well. The string went where it's supposed to be, and the lower tension is good. So then you just move the string over here, and there is a little knife there which will cut it, and then you replace the cover. A little slot there, push it straight down, and there you go. Replacing the bobbin is very easy and straightforward. And be sure you use the right bobbins for this machine. It is not the same as other machines, especially commercial embroidery machines. Using the bobbin winder. To make your own bobbin, place the empty bobbin on this post over here. There is a spring on it, so it will take some force. And then rotate it until the spring catches on a little lip on it, so it holds the bobbin securely. Now we're going to take the thread here and run it to the bobbin winder instead. So to release the thread from the tensioning disc, you should raise the embroidery foot using the switch underneath. Make sure that's up. That will be sure to release the tension on the thread, and then after it's released, you can just pull it out effortlessly. And now let's thread it to roll to this bobbin winder instead. So step 1's the same, you put it underneath this hook. Step 2's the same, you put it underneath this lip here, this way. But now we go to this item here. You can follow the instructions on here. So go on the outside of this hook, go around the hook, then go under this disc, like so. And then let's go over to the top of the bobbin, wind it around a little bit, and then according to the instructions, you place it into one of these slots underneath. Let me get this out of the way. Like so. And then when I pull it, it cuts off because there is a knife in that little slot. Once you've done that, you push the bobbin against there. And when you do that and the machine is on, the interface will tell you that it's ready to wind the bobbin. At this point, you press the start-stop button, which is on this side of the machine, and then it will wind the bobbin. It will automatically stop by jamming because this device here, when the bobbin gets thick enough, he will hit the brakes on it naturally, and then you can press stop when it stops spinning well. And here we go. Let me press it. And you can see the bobbin is filling up. And again, you just wait for it to get so thick that it starts rubbing against here, and then it will stop spinning, and you press the stop button then. And this will take a minute or so. Okay, now you see that it's not really spinning anymore. It's just going back and forth. That's because the thickness of it is rubbing against this brake. Hit the start stop button again, and your bobbin is good to go. Let's take it off, pull it straight out. It is, oh, hold on, sorry. You pull it back first and then straight out. There we go. And then you can cut the bobbin using one of the cutting tools or scissors. And there you go. You have a bobbin that matches your upper thread. And as for this, you can either make another bobbin or pull it out and thread all over again. Like so. And that's how you use the bobbin winder. Tension adjustment disc. If you see here, this is a adjustment that can make the tension, your upper thread tension, a lot stronger or a lot weaker. This is used in conjunction with the pressure foot switch underneath. So when the switch is up for maintenance or whatever, there's no tension at all. I have the thread loose here, and when I pull it, there's zero tension. When he's down, which is it's down when you're sewing or embroidering, then when I pull this, he has grabbed the thread and it is very tight. Now, when I move it to a lower number, it becomes very loose again. And when I move it higher than 4, it increasingly becomes very difficult to pull any thread at all. And depending on what you're sewing, you can adjust this higher or lower depending on your need. And again, 4 should be the default for it, and you're gonna feel nothing unless your pressure foot is set at the down position, at which point he starts squeezing here and you can feel it. And when you set your bobbin, he should probably be set about at 4 or 3 feeling wise. If you pull on there, you can pull on the bobbin in the same way that you're pulling here to feel the tension. But this disc doesn't adjust the bobbin, he only adjusts the upper tension. So that is the purpose of this wheel, and that's how you adjust it. Again, just make sure your foot switch is down, or else it's not gonna work. Butterfly tabletop control panel video for the sewing mode GUI. So the tabletop has 2 different screens it can show for if you have the sewing table, or a different screen if you have the embroidery table. This screen is what it shows if you have the sewing table installed. This one's pretty simple. So on screen are a lot of patterns the sewing mode can do. You notice some are going zigzagging left and right and such, because the needle in the embroidery in this tabletop sewing machine will go back and forth to try to do that pattern for you. So there are several libraries worth of sewing patterns to do, and several sewing feet that you can do it with. So these are 3 different sewing feet where it has patterns for. The first sewing feet is here. If you use one of these patterns, then you must use this foot with it. And same here, if you use one of these patterns, you must use this type of foot. And any of these patterns, you must use that type of foot with it. Now, when I press this, over here is a preview pane. It shows you what is going to be sewing manually with your help. So straight ones, again, they're just, a lot of them are just going back and forth and such. Up here is a button to do combinations. So this will allow you to combine several patterns together, and you can see the preview pane now shows several of them doing it together if you wanted to do something like that. And then you push that again to make sure it's not highlighted, and then you can, here in the preview pane, only see one pattern again. This button down here makes sure it makes it go on the left side and the right side or the center. This button here lets you switch between a 2 needle mode or a 1 needle mode. You would have to have an accessory to do 2 needle mode. This button here causes a trim to occur. It cuts the bobbin thread, and so you can remove your fabric after you're done. And this one here mirrors your pattern. So let me do that. You can see the preview here, and when I hit that, it will make sure it goes in the opposite. Let me try a different one. There you go. You can see that more clearly. Down here are adjustments to your sewing pattern to make it wider, thinner, longer, etc. And here is the speed at which it's gonna spin the main shaft at. So the faster this is, the faster you're gonna have to react to it. Down here is the ability to save your pattern. So if you do a combination pattern of some sort, and you can see it over here, you might want to save that for later. So if you push save, then this category over here, number 4, will hold that for later. And the trash can here is to delete any saved patterns you have after you highlight it. Let's go back. And the erase button here will erase them one at a time from the preview, just to help you make the pattern you want. And then let me turn combination back off. And once you have a pattern ready, then the bottom right will begin sewing mode on the machine. The light on the machine will turn green. You can't see it in this view, or maybe. And then when you press the green button, on-off button on the left side of the machine, or this bottom right button again, it will start sewing. And you can hear it go. So that's pretty much it for the sewing mode GUI. It is very simple. And if you wanted to see the embroidery graphical interface, it should be in the next video. Butterfly tabletop control panel video. Embroidery mode. So the butterfly tabletop has 2 graphical interfaces it can show. A sewing interface and a embroidery interface. When the sewing table is on, then it shows the sewing interface. When the embroidery table is on, it shows this interface here. Okay, so this graphical interface is broken up in a couple of menus. So the first menu is like a library menu. Up here will let you go to this menu. It lets you select the design, or load a design, or create some lettering for that design, and it will let you combine several designs together. Once your designs have been assembled, then you move to this button here, which is in editing mode. And this lets you resize the design some, move it around a little, and choose colors and rotate it, mirror it, and let you save some of the changes to memory. When you're ready with your design, then you would go into the third menu, which is at the bottom right, and that lets you actually do the embroidery. Okay, so I switched to this one, and then these arrow keys will actually let you move the table around. You might hear it some. It will let you go forward and backwards X amount of stitches, or forward and backwards to the next color change, or go back to the beginning. And it will let you set the RPM speed of the embroidery. And when you press in this menu, when you press here, it will start sewing. You will also notice that there is a green light over here, and that button is the start stop button, and you can push that to start embroidery as well. Okay, that was a quick rundown of all the modes. Let's go over them in a little bit more. Okay, so this first menu is the library menu, or the design menu. So this button here will let you choose among the built-in library of this machine for several pages of canned designs. If you go over here, it let you go through a library of letter designs. Same with this menu here. When you go here, you select from designs that are in memory. Either you saved them or you loaded them from the USB stick. And you load it and you just push it and it will show on the screen. So now it should show you the combination button, which is up here. So this combination button, if it's highlighted, you can mix several designs together. Now it makes a big mess when you do a complicated design. Let me turn it off. Select one thing at a time. You also notice there are several, when you're in library mode, there are several buttons here as well. This submenu lets you do outlines. This middle menu here lets you do actual lettering. So again, to combine several things together, you will want to turn combination on. And then you see I can actually do lettering on it, onto another pattern. And again, when combination mode is on, we can keep on adding it to it. Now, if you did it incorrectly, there is an erase button here that will let you undo the last thing you did. Okay, what else? So let's go to editing mode from here. And down here is a select key, and that will let you choose among all the things that you combine together if you did any combining. And on the right, it will let you do some special editing with it. Like here, I believe it will spread out lettering if you have done lettering. This button here will undo some of your changes when in that particular menu. Let's highlight the outline now. This menu here, I believe, will let you do resizing of library designs, or squashing, or unsquashing, and such. This one here is rotation. It looks a little weird when you do it that way. There's a mirror here. A mirror doesn't mean much for that. Let me choose one. Here we go. and then when I press mirror on these letters, then you can see an obvious change there. Now out here, when you highlight any of them and you press the erase button, it will erase that from the design. Next, there is a button here with a little star. When you push that, it will save your combined design so far to memory, so you can keep it for later or just save your progress. This button here will let you change between the small hoop and the large hoop. This machine, it does have a large and small hoop, and when I push it, he will say to change the hoop, and you must change the hoop when you see this. So, and you see this is now a very, very big picture. So that means he thinks the large frame is on. So whatever frame you're on, if you're on the frame that matches your real frame, he will be on the center. The needle will be on the center of the hoop. What else? Let's see. That is a lot of. We covered a lot so far. It's not too complicated of a. Now that button there. Hold on. This button here lets you set up colors. Now this machine only has one cone, so after each color change he will stop and leave it up to you to change the color or not. But if you have a multiple color design, this one does not. Then you can change the colors around so it can look appealing on the screen. Let's go back to, and of course when you're ready to sew, you would be in editing mode and hit that bottom right button here. Moment, and in which case you can again move the hoop some. Pushing this mode button will center the hoop at the middle again. This button here is very important. It's the trace button. So when I press that, he will trace it, and you can see if it will fit. He's pretty good about not letting you move off so that it actually hits the hoop. Hits the side of the hoop. He knows how large the hoop is. Okay, let me cancel out of here. And let's go back to design menu a little bit more. So, cancel there. Alright, so we covered the built-in library and the built-in fancy letters, which is not lettering. The lettering is here, and there are several types you can do, and usually if you cancel out a menu, it will bring you back. Here we covered this, where you can see some designs we previously loaded. Let me turn off combination mode. That can get out of control. Push that again, and here, because we pressed that star button, it's now in memory also. And when we're not using it anymore, we would use the trash can button to erase that design from memory. Okay, to load a design from a USB stick, you would use this menu up here, and you see a sub option that says Import Embroidery. So if he sees the USB stick, you will see this option here, and push on it. Here it shows the designs which are on the stick. Now it has to be designs in this machine's format. So I will show in a different video how to use the software to convert it from your format, such as DST, into a format that this machine understands. After those are on the USB stick and you see it here, you highlight the design, and then you hit import, and then your design should be is loaded in here, as you can see. So after your design is loaded into memory, you can go back in here and remember to exit and go back in to refresh it. You should see your design in memory, which is here. So again, you just push the button to switch around between your different patterns, and you can use it. And when you're done with it, then highlight it and use the trash can symbol to erase it. Let's go there. And again, that's pretty much everything. This is pretty simple as far as graphical interfaces go. And again, when you're ready to sew, you would go to editing mode first. You would push this button here. Again, you would make sure that the hoop here is the same hoop the machine thinks that you've chosen. Now push down here. Just a moment. The lights will turn green over here. You can't see that. And from there, you just hit start, set your RPM, and good to go.